Hello EFD squad and welcome back to UCL Review. I'm never on this show, so I say welcome back. But really the only familiar face here is Dougie Critchley, who will tonight be bringing you the best of the action from the premium competition in world football, the Champions League. Dougie, how are you? How was your evening watching the football?
It was good, thank you, Pat. I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, it was quite an evening. So I watched Real Madrid versus Liverpool. Pat watched Man City versus Dortmund, which we'll be coming on to in due course. But we've got to start with Liverpool because their shocking season continued as they lost 3-1 in a bit of a thrashing to Real Madrid in the Alfredo Di Stefano training ground, of course, with goals from Vinicius Junior, who got a brace, Asensio and Mo Salah in a much anticipated repeat of the 2018 Champions League final. Now, the big team news from a Liverpool perspective was the fact that Thiago and Bobby Firmino didn't start. Klopp went with Diogo Jota up front and Naby Keita getting the nod in midfield. Now, this was a massive call from Klopp, given that Keita had missed 24 games with injury this season and only been fit to start 8 League and Champions League games. He ended up being replaced by Thiago after just 42 minutes and didn't really look incisive with his passing, didn't look fully fit, couldn't really get about the pitch. Trent was completely overwhelmed on his side of midfield as well, so wasn't great from Naby Keita. But Real Madrid went into this game with their own injury issues, of course, too. Sergio Ramos was out. He picked up a calf injury whilst on international duty. And Rafael Varane had tested positive for COVID, which meant that they went with Eder Militao, Nacho, Lucas Vazquez and Ferland Mendy as a back four. But Liverpool, despite the Real Madrid injury issues, started terribly. Real Madrid took the lead after 27 minutes. Kroos lofted through ball, fell perfectly to Vinicius between Trent and Phillips. He tucked home his 5th goal of the season and his 2nd in the Champions League. And after 36 minutes, it got even worse. It was 2-0. Again, no press from Liverpool's midfield. Kroos able to pick his head up, play the ball over the top. Trent attempted a blind header back to Alisson, but the ball only fell to Asensio, who intercepted and flicked the ball over Alisson to score for the 4th game in a row. After, I ruled him out, saying Real Madrid should think about getting rid of Asensio a month ago. I'd been made to look a right mug. He played spectacularly well in this game, as did Vinicius. At half-time, get this, Liverpool hadn't taken a single shot. That was the first time they'd done that since November 2014 in this competition. Real had at 8 with 4 on target, and the Reds had conceded 2 or more in the first half for the first time since 2005 against AC Milan, of course, in Istanbul. Now, in the second half, Liverpool started much brighter. They got an away goal after a mazy dribble from Wijnaldum, fell to Salah. He tucked home his 27th goal of the season. Ridiculous stat considering how average Liverpool have been all year. But then, got even worse. 65 minutes, Liverpool failed to deal with a throw-in. Modric laid it across to Vinicius Junior to tuck home his 2nd. So, it was a miserable, miserable evening for Liverpool. They looked entirely flat in the first half. They couldn't get anywhere near Kroos and Modric. They really struggled to deal with Vinicius Junior on the left-hand flank as well. And Phillips and Kabak looked incredibly shaky after looking pretty solid over the last few games as well. So, horror show from Liverpool. They went into this in reasonable form as well. They'd won their 2nd consecutive league game on Saturday against Arsenal, so this doesn't suggest Arsenal are a great side at the moment either, as of course we probably know. That taking them within 3 points off 4th spot, but they're still in 7th, and they now look set to exit the Champions League before the semi-final stage for the 2nd consecutive season. Of course, they lost 4-2 to Atletico Madrid in the last 16 last year, so their only sign of sort of rescuing this miserable campaign looks to have been extinguished, although they do have that away goal which could prove to be crucial. But Pat, for Real Madrid, what a result.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Liverpool did go into this on the back of an uptick in form, but Real Madrid went into this in very good form themselves. Obviously, they've won this competition 13 times, which helps as well. But since they lost at home to Levante 2-1 back at the end of January, they've played 9, won 7, drawn 2 in the league. And in that time, they've scored 17 goals. So the attack not as amazing as it used to be, but they've conceded just 5. So they are really, really good at shutting up shop. So it's going to be a serious task for Liverpool to make up this gap in the second leg. In the league, their form has got them back into contention, really. They're now just 3 points behind Atletico Madrid. They're 2 points off Barcelona. And of course, at the turn of the year, they were 6 off top spot. So they've really managed to reel in the guys ahead of them. And this weekend, El Clasico coming up. So that could be a really interesting one to set up the run in. Now, in this game, despite only having 46% possession, they really did dominate the run of play. I'm sorry, by the way, if you can hear people having a little party in a garden nearby, perhaps they're celebrating the Real Madrid result. 46% possession, but they had 15 shots to Liverpool's 7, with 7 on target to Liverpool's 1. So, I mean, it really was a masterclass in playing without the ball, which isn't the kind of thing we expect to see from Real Madrid. But anyway, the key performers in this match, obviously Salah got that away goal. That's his 121st for Liverpool since his debut. In that time that he's been at the club, only Ronaldo, Messi and Lewandowski have scored more goals. Absolutely incredible from him. But, of course, the key players were really on the Madrid side. Kroos, absolutely brilliant. 3 tackles and interceptions, 4 chances created. And that Vinicius one is just out of this world. 91% pass accuracy and that assist. Casemiro as well. As I've said, Real Madrid, not having a huge amount of the ball, really needed a defensive show from him. And he put one on. 8 tackles and 2 interceptions. Staggering numbers from the Brazilian. But Vinicius Junior, we're going to give him the Man of the Match award. 1 tackle, 2 dribbles, 1 key pass, 4 shots, 2 goals. Only Kylian Mbappe has scored a brace at the quarterfinals or later of the Champions League at a younger age than the 20-year-old Brazilian. Crazy to think how long he's been in Madrid and still just 20 years old. Anyway, up next for Liverpool, they've got Aston Villa on Saturday, one of 2 games against a fellow top 10 side in their run-in, so one of their tougher fixtures. Real Madrid, meanwhile, as I said, Barcelona, El Clasico, looking to stretch that unbeaten run against their closest rivals to 4 games. And gotta say, the second leg of this looks supremely juicy, Dukes.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. I mean, a lot of people on Twitter are talking about the Anfield factor, where, of course, that isn't such a factor this year without fans in the stadium. And if Liverpool play like this, they have absolutely no chance. It was one of their worst displays of the season, in a season in which they got thrashed by Aston Villa, put in 2 limp displays against Fulham. Nothing else springing to mind at the moment, but they were terrible. And their Champions League form going into this had been pretty good, so really not good. No part of Liverpool's side is working particularly effectively at the moment, so they really need to buck up their ideas if they want to get anything out of the second leg. But Liverpool fans, we want to hear from you. Was it just wrong selection from Klopp in midfield, or did some of your key players not turn up? Get your thoughts in the comments down below, and let's move on to our second game. So for our second game, we head over to the Etihad, where Man City were taking on Dortmund in a massive clash. But what went down, Pat?
Well, I thought this was going to be a walkover for Man City going in. They'd lost just one of their last 37 games, had a 14-point lead at the top of the Prem, on for the quadruple. And they did get the result, but I don't think it was quite as easy as they expected. As it is, 2-1 winners at the Etihad, with goals from De Bruyne and Foden, one being pulled back for Dortmund by Reus. Still on track for just their second ever Champions League semi-final. But I thought it was a little bit of a warning. Now, they faced a Dortmund side without Jadon Sancho. He's missed the last 4 league games with a thigh injury. Witsel also out. Zagadou out, I think, for the rest of the season. And Moukoko. While City, absolutely no injury worries for them. Had everyone available, basically. And Pep went for an interesting lineup. Played Bernardo Silva up front with an attacking 3 behind him of Mahrez, De Bruyne and Foden. So was obviously relying on that defensive work rate, hoping that they could put some pressure on a backline, which frankly this season has had some embarrassing moments. They also started Cancelo at left back. I think that was an indication of the fact that they expected to have the majority of the ball, and they did end up with 62% of it, unsurprisingly. But I thought Dortmund were pretty bright in the first half, limited City to very little. I think by about 40 minutes in, both sides had 3 shots. But Pep's side scored with their very first one. De Bruyne tucking away a Mahrez cutback after a sloppy Chan giveaway in the midfield allowed the citizens to counter-attack very quickly. City then had a pen awarded and very quickly rescinded. So the ball bounced up in the box. Emre Can did a little kind of flick with his foot. About knee height, Rodri had put his head down to head the ball. The foot didn't come within about 2 feet of his head. Didn't stop him going down clutching his face. Ref gave the pen, booked Emre Can, then got a word from VAR, had to go over and check it out. Honestly, watched the replay about 50 times.
Another shocker in this game.
He was so keen to keep this decision if he could, and before he eventually gave up. But the yellow card stood when he rescinded the decision, which I thought was a little bit much, given that Emre Can was clearly right to complain about the decision. And the fact that Rodri didn't get booked, I thought was a bit disgraceful as well. Then, even worse, Ederson miscontrols a back pass outside the box. The ball pops up in the air. Jude Bellingham presses him brilliantly, wins the ball cleanly, runs on, and he ends up putting the ball into the goal, but the referee had already whistled by that point for a foul against Ederson, who'd gone down clutching his foot, despite the fact that he was barely touched. I think the goal should have stood. I think it was an absolute disgrace. As I said in our Football Daily group chat, I was going full Drogba. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. And it really was. Anyway, in the second half, I think City were a little bit chastened by this experience. Came out, I think, much more defensively. Really held the ball. Dortmund could basically produce absolutely nothing. And City were just grinding through them until a brilliant move saw Bellingham feed Haaland, who was able to spring Reus, who put it in. And with 5 minutes to go, it looked like that was going to be it. 1-1 heading back to Germany. But City did have another gear. De Bruyne, an absolutely sensational ball to the back post, where Gundogan plucked it out of the air, set up Foden, who swept home from just a couple of yards out. City ended up edging it with 11 shots to 7, 5 on target to 3. But I thought that given that Dortmund have had a pretty bad defence this season, have been capable of showing up and looking great, and also like a clown show, I thought that it was a really good performance for them. Coming up against what is clearly the best side in Europe this season. I mean, obviously it was Bayern last year, but this year, Man City won 8 of 9 Champions League games. They've scored 19. They've conceded just 2. They've been in imperious form. So, yes, City have the edge. And yes, you'd expect them to be able to score in Germany. But I think that Dortmund could take a little bit of heart from this. And, of course, their star man, all eyes were on him, Dukes.
Yeah, massively. I mean, in the absence of Jadon Sancho, who Pat, as he mentioned, was out with an injury, so he wasn't playing against his former club. So all eyes were on Erling Haaland, who continues, of course, to be linked with a move to Guardiola's side. Obviously, that move feels a little bit unlikely. Guardiola doesn't get on very well with Mino Raiola. They've just announced their financial losses for 2019-20, although that didn't take into account the Sane transfer. It's going to take about £120 million plus to land Haaland. I feel like that move's quite unlikely. But anyway, all eyes were on him. It felt like a bit of an audition. Of course, the 20-year-old has scored a ridiculous 39 goals for club and country this season, and 10 and 6 in the Champions League going into this game.
Ridiculous.
In terms of how he got on in this game, well, he almost got in behind a few times. He missed a one-on-one when he was off balance, but he only managed 2 shots. However, he did create 2 chances, obviously grabbed that assist for the Reus goal as well. But it feels like, despite Dortmund's positive showing here, it's going to be a real uphill task for Man City not to go through in this one. So this feels like it might be Dortmund's last time in the Champions League for a wee while as well. Their 2-1 defeat to Eintracht Frankfurt at the weekend was their 10th in the league this season, the same as Bayern, Leipzig and Wolfsburg, 1-2-3 in the Bundesliga put together. They are now 7 points behind Adi Hütter's side with 7 games remaining. So unless something miraculous happens with Edin Terzic's side, it feels like they're going to miss out in the Champions League for, I believe, the first time since Klopp's final season there. In terms of key performers in this game, well, De Bruyne, he created 2 chances. He played 2 amazing passes which led to goals, as he did against Leicester as well. Continues that phenomenal form. He had 3 out of 3 accurate long balls as well and scored, of course. Foden grabbed that crucial second goal. He had 5 shots. No other City player had more than 2. He got 3 of those on target. He created 1 chance. Completed 5 tackles, interceptions and 3 dribbles as well. You can really tell how much it means to Phil Foden to play for Man City, regularly at this stage of the competition now as well. He's been such a crucial member of that side, and this was another virtuoso display from the youngster. And great to see him talking with Erling Haaland at the end as well, maybe having a cheeky word in his ear. Up next, Man City host Leeds on Saturday at 12:30pm. Guardiola versus Bielsa, that's sure to be one to watch before Dortmund, and then Chelsea in a massive week for the club. Dortmund, meanwhile, will be desperate to get back to winning ways against 8th place Stuttgart on Saturday evening. I feel like, Pat, if this is Dortmund's final Champions League tie in a while, maybe just a quick word on their season, because it's been a really weird one with the decision to get rid of Lucien Favre, the decision to bring in Marco Rose, but not until the end of the season. It feels like kind of a lost campaign maybe for them.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, early days this season, they actually had some of the best underlying stats in Europe. They were playing really, really well. They weren't really getting the rub of the green. And Lucien Favre, it felt a little bit of a petulant decision to hand in his resignation and to head out of the club. I think they should have just kept him. Like, I understand that they wanted Marco Rose to come in the summer, but it feels like they've just thrown away what could have been potentially a title challenging campaign, given that Bayern have not been runaway league leaders. when you look at the quality of that Dortmund squad, for them to be 7 points off fourth at this stage of the season is frankly a little bit embarrassing.
Yeah.
And if they do end up losing Sancho and Haaland, then they're going to have an awful lot of work to do. You know, like that's a huge amount of talent to replace, despite the fact that they've got young guys like Knauf, who started in this game tonight, and like Giovanni Reina and Jude Bellingham, who I was reminded when I checked into Twitter just now was born in 2003.
Crazy.
Absolutely insane. Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about them. So I think Marco Rose might have an uphill battle, and I think we might need Dortmund to do some of their traditional transfer window magic to remain competitive next season. A little bit troubling, a little bit sad. It feels kind of like it did at the end of Klopp's time there, that this is the end of not exactly a golden generation in this case, but certainly the end of a particularly fun Dortmund side.
Yeah, it's a real shame as well. But at least in Marco Rose, it feels like they've got a great coach coming in for the next 2-3 years. Unlike when they got rid of Tuchel or when he resigned, and then it was Stöger and Bosch and managers that didn't quite fit the Dortmund philosophy. I think Marco Rose will be a long-term great solution. But, you know, as you say, troubles in that squad. Haven't really got the balance, particularly defensively, right this season. But guys, that's all we've got time for on UCL Review for today. I'll be back tomorrow with Michael McCubbin. Pat, what would you like to push to? I think the podcast will be coming out in a couple of hours' time, hopefully.
Yeah, you can check out the podcast where I talked over the biggest failures, disappointments, calamities, catastrophes of the season with Joe Tomlinson, and I managed to prod him into giving us a vintage Tomlinson rant about VAR. So if you enjoy Joe absolutely going off on one for about 10 minutes, then please do check that out.
I love it. I'm sure the vein was in full force. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.